Xenagos, God of Revels, is 3 and a gruel for a 6/5 indestructible legendary enchantment creature as a god. As long as our devotion to Gruul is less than 7, Xenagos is not a creature. At the beginning of combat on our turn, another target creature we control gains haste and +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. This is an upgrade to MTG Burgeoning's Xenagos EDH commander deck. And a portion of this upgrade is going to be credited to Prophet93. Check him out on Tapped Out. He's got some pretty interesting deck techs. He was extremely insightful, and I like to make sure that he gets the credit for some of the changes that are taking place within this deck. Because of his comments over on tappedout.net, these following changes are being made to this Xenagos commander deck. All right, MTG Burgeoning, hello, welcome here, welcome back. This is another upgrade for our Xenagos commander deck. We got some changes, we got some cards coming out, some cards going in, and taking a pretty dramatic shift into what this deck was doing, or at least a portion of a package of the deck that this was doing. So let's get started right away by talking about some of these exclusions. And the biggest thing that we're going to remove is we are going to remove our entire token package from this deck. Now that was about 6-7 cards, depending on whether or not you view one of the cards as still beneficial. I do not, but we'll talk about that later during this deck tech. So with that being said, let's get right to what's coming out and what's going in. All right, so let's start with the token package. The first card coming out is going to be Avenger of Zendikar. 5 and 2 green as an elemental, and comes into play. Put a 0/1 green plant creature token onto the battlefield for each land we control. And whenever a land enters the battlefield in our control, each plant we control gets a +1/+1 counter. Okay, so that's the first token producer that's coming out. The next one is Chancellor of the Forge for 4 and 3 red. When this enters the battlefield, we put X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens with haste onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures we control. These two, oh, and of course, if it's in your opening hand, you get a 1/1 red goblin hasty token creature at the beginning of the game. These two creatures were the prime targets for an entwined tooth and nail, where both creatures would enter the battlefield at the same time. I would put Chancellor of the Forge's trigger on the stack first, and then Avenger of Zendikar's. So Avenger of Zendikar would create a nice little army of plant tokens, and then the Chancellor of the Forge would trigger and create that many more hasty goblins. So those two are going to come out, in addition to the Craterhoof Behemoth. At 5 and 3 green from Avacyn Restored, this haster would come into play and give creatures we control trample and +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the number of creatures we control. If we're eliminating the potential of having a large token army, having the Craterhoof Behemoth is no longer going to be that valuable. Additionally, Living Hive will be coming out. 6 and 2 green as a 6/6 trampler. Whenever this dealt combat damage to a player, we put that many 1/1 green insect creature tokens into play. Again, if we're not banking on needing the tokens or going a different way, its inclusion was primarily based upon having the tokens. I'm sure we can find creatures that would be more beneficial to what Xenagos is trying to do. Let's take a look at some of those. Coming in and taking the place of Avenger of Zendikar is going to be the Quartzwood Crasher from the Ikoria Lair of Behemoths. For 2 red and a green, this 6/6 trampler says whenever one or more creatures we control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample, where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. So minimally, if this is coming right off of the Xenagos activation, we get a 12/12 trampler that most likely is going to hit for some kind of damage and create us another big trampling body. So Quartzwood the Trampler is in. Avenger of Zendikar is out. Next creature in, this one taking the place of Chancellor of the Forge, is Godo, Bandit Warlord. For 5 and a red, when this legendary human barbarian enters the battlefield, we may search our library for an equipment card and put it onto the battlefield. Let's stop there for a moment. The only equipment we have in the deck is the Embercleave. Finding the Embercleave, getting it into play, where the Embercleave then says, when Embercleave enters the battlefield, attach it to a creature you control. So Godo comes down, searches out the Embercleave. Embercleave comes into play and attaches to Godo. Minimally attaches to Godo. Makes him a 4/4 double strike trampler. Let's say we move to combat then. Xenagos gives him +4/+4. He becomes an 8/8 trampling first striker. I'm sorry, an 8/8 trampling double striker. Whenever Godo attacks for the first time each turn, untap it and all samurai we control. There are no samurai, just Godo. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase. So Godo will attack for 8/8 trample double strike. He will untap. We will have an additional combat phase. Xenagos will give him a +8/+8 this time, and now he's sending in 16/16 trampling double strike damage. Godo is an absolute amazing creature for this deck, and Prophet93 deserves the credit for suggesting we include him, and a great suggestion it's been so far. The play testing has been amazing. Taking the place of the Craterhoof Behemoth will be Ghalta, Primal Hunger. 12/12 trampler that we will almost never tap 10 and 2 green to cast, because his mana cost is reduced by X, where X is equal to the total power of creatures we control, X colorless, of course. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that we cast Ghalta for 2 green. And a 12/12 trampler for 2 green, that's aces in my book. Replacing the Living Hive is the Giant Ediphage. For 5 and 2 green, the 7/7 trampling insect. When it deals combat damage to a player, we put a copy of the Giant Ediphage into play. So although it's still kind of on theme with the tokens, we are making bigger, more trampley tokens with the Quartzside Crasher and the Giant Ediphage. Great additions to our Xenagos deck. Just great. All right, so next, if we are planning to eliminate the possibility of having a token army in play, then we also should eliminate Gaia's Cradle. We tap, adds a green to our mana pool for each creature we control. Through early play testing with these changes, having a Gaia's Cradle out there and not being able to activate it, oh boy does that hurt. So that card has got to come out, and until we are able to get a copy of Nylea Keen-Eyed from Theros Beyond Death, Malignus will take its place. At 3 and 2 red, Malignus's power and toughness are each equal to the highest life total among your opponents rounded up, and damage that would be prevented by Malignus, damage that would be dealt by Malignus can't be prevented. All right, and that was the card I wasn't sure about coming out in the beginning, but now it just makes sense for it to come out because we just don't have the number of creatures to make that card useful. And honestly, if we're talking about a card as valuable as Gaia's Cradle, it has features in other decks, so I'm not worried about finding a home for the Gaia's Cradle. Still with the token package, because we would have so many tokens and make them so big with the Craterhoof Behemoth, we are also going to eliminate the Altar of Dementia. There's just not the possibility of realistically milling anyone now that we're reducing the number of token creatures that we have and how big that they could get. So replacing the Altar of Dementia will be a Momentous Fall. For 2 and 2 green, this instance says, as an additional cost, sacrifice a creature. We draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power and gain life equal to its toughness. Helps with card draw, helps with life, it's in. And then last part of the token package, because we're losing the big mana of the Gaea's Cradle, Comet Storm coming out. The multi-kicker potential game ender just can't be acknowledged without the use of the Gaea's Cradle. In its place will be Return of the Wild Speaker. For 400 green, as an instant, we're going to pick one, and most likely we're going to draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures we control. Card draw, card draw, card draw. So that's the token package coming out. So in addition to that, we got 3 other small quick changes here. The Moldgraph Monstrosity for 4 and triple green as an 8/8 trampler. If it dies, we exile it, and then we can return 2 creature cards at random from our graveyard to our battlefield. That's going to come out, and in its place will be Reap the Past from Modern Horizons. For X and Gruul, we return X cards at random from our graveyard to our hand, and then exile Reap the Past. Next up, a favorite card of mine is going to come out, Temporal Aperture. Tap 5, tap this, shuffle our library, reveal a top card until end of turn. As long as that card's on top of it, we can play it without paying its mana cost. A little restrictive. I still love the card, but it's hard to say no when you're going to replace it with the Great Henge. Similar to Ghalta, we tap X, or this spell is reduced by X, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. Tap for 2 green, gain 2 life. Non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, +1/+1 counter, and draw a card. And lastly, coming out will be the Thematic Compass, which allowed us to search our library for a basic land and then reveal it. And if we had 7 or more lands at the beginning of our end step, we would transform it, and it acted as a mana-producing pseudo Maze of Ith. That comes out, and in comes Skyshroud Claim. Search our library for 2 forts, put them into play, shuffle our library, and they come into play untapped. Those are the next round of changes to the Xenagos God of Revels Commander deck. Leave us some comments in the comment section below. Let us know how we're doing and what changes or additions would you make. Burgeoning out. What is an MTG Burgeoning Pack War? An MTG Burgeoning Pack War is a monthly YouTube series during which combatants are randomly assigned booster packs from the same Magic the Gathering set. It will never be Dragon's Maze. The combatant who opens the most valuable rare, mythic rare, or foil will receive every rare, mythic rare, and foil opened during that video. Example: if 12 combatants pack war, then one of these 12 individuals will receive every rare, mythic rare, and foil opened during the event, based on who opened the most valuable card. If 36 combatants pack war, then one individual will receive every rare, mythic rare, and foil opened during that video. How can I participate? Go to patreon.com below and join the Pack Wars tier for $5 per month. There are only 36 slots available. Each month beginning in July 2020, X contenders will prepare for war, X being the number of eligible patrons. Each patron who joins will be eligible for the following month's Pack War, and each following month thereafter if still a patron. As the number of patrons increases, so do the potential rewards. Prepare for battle. All card prices are as stated by TCG Player Mid at the time of opening. In the unlikely event of a tie, each deadlocked combatant will receive a bonus booster pack to help break the tie. The combatant who opens the most valuable rare, mythic rare, or foil from these bonus booster packs will break the tie and be awarded all rares, mythic rares, and foils opened during the video.